Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today to our webinar about crisis-driven change management. We're very excited to have Deborah Fulton, our Chief Administrative Officer, join us, along with Elizabeth Cobb, our Executive Advisor. Thank you both for being here. At FutureSolve, we usually run these CHRO roundtables every quarter. And if you like what you hear today, feel free to actually follow and join the next session. This is our second topic this year. All right, a little bit about FutureSolve. Really, we are a organization focused on the future of work. We are here to support companies to prepare for the future of work by bringing them strategies and ways to implement people strategies to make an impact, specifically on growth and change. Our unique services and what we provide to companies really fall under 4 categories. We do CHRO advisory, where we can support companies on strategies and pair you up with executive advisors like Elizabeth on the call by looking at what you need and who can help you the most. We also bring a wide array of artificial intelligence services that truly help with impacting and helping with your strategy by using AI for people analytics, talent sourcing, assessments, and engagement. And we have a HR technology marketplace with technology offerings that we also pair with our strategies. And last but not least, we do help leaders on leadership training and alignment of the overall leadership group. So if you need help there, we also specialize in that area. One of our founders, Ken, has written multiple books that actually have a lot of ways of implementing that in businesses. What we differentiate ourselves the most is we actually bring 3 of these areas together with every engagement. We bring advisory along with our IP and intellectual property paired with innovative technology to bring a holistic impact and approach to you. All right, we wanted to start with our agenda and what we're going to be talking about today. Debbie, I'll have you take it from here.
Great, thanks, Andy, and good afternoon, everyone. So despite all the downsides, I think our pandemic has been somewhat beneficial for businesses in many ways. We can productively work from home. We can order food and entertainment from our phones, and it's all delivered right to our door very quickly, safely, and digitally. In fact, almost every company, product, and service has been transformed, and all in a matter of 2 years. So how have companies been dealing with this massive change? We want to talk about some of those strategies today. An organization's ability to change, we believe, is a very fundamental strength. We need to adapt. It's almost guaranteed that there will be some shift in technology, some change in a customer requirement or our employee needs that will interrupt our business. So building a company that is architectured for change is critical at this point. Now, today we will talk a little bit about the changing dynamics created by the pandemic, a model that can help organizations prepare to be change ready, and managing the return to work transition. So we will have Elizabeth kick things off by talking about leadership transformation.
Elizabeth, I think you're on mute. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Debbie. So one of the ways that Debbie talked about COVID transforming our business climate was how it removed psychological barriers for us. And some of us may have been digital rookies. And within 2 years, COVID helped us learn how to become digital masters. And if you've ever heard the term digital acceleration, by the end of 2021, self-checkout, smart payments, scanning, digital wallets, those had become more common processes. And as a result of that, 50 CEOs were surveyed about the digital acceleration process because it had become a new normal. And they were asked about how had it played a role in business transformation and how were businesses coping with the new way of that we're leading business. And they came back with some observations that were interesting. One was that smart working is possible, it is achievable, as many businesses showed after the pandemic. But leaders have to show that they can find a balance between working remotely and working in office. And as a result of that, leadership has begun to take priority over management. And the reason is that processes like learning and relationship dynamics and hierarchical structures need to morph to flex with working from home part-time, because management and being to oversee processes on the spot are more difficult. And because of the pace of change, companies can no longer rely on themselves to innovate to stay competitive. So some of these CEOs shared that they began reaching out to universities, to other organizations to innovate. And that's how they found the technological synergies to stay ahead. So whether the result of an economic downturn, uncertainty, disruption, cost cutting, we know that transformation will continue. And we also know that M&A and other transformation initiatives have been forecasted to up to $10 trillion of change in the next few years. So as we'll discuss in the next few minutes, the pandemic not just changed the dynamics of our business and change management landscape, but how we go through the change process and what's required of us. And one of the terms that came up as Debbie and I prepared for today was a term called agility. And it came up time and time again, and it's different from change transformation. One of the things that we discovered was that we have to change the change management playbook. And if we want to go on to the next slide, Andy. Some of our companies that we're very familiar with did not make it through the 2-year pandemic. And a number of companies that I went to every day closed their doors, and you may have felt similarly. And for others, it drove them to the brink of extinction, and they had to react in crisis mode. And out of the crisis, they learned that continuous change was here to stay, and that they had to be able to adapt in order to survive. And the playbook became, instead of managing projects from Excel spreadsheets and very tactical and linear change, to become agile, quick, and also digital in nature. There were a few other steps that were shared when looking at change in this new normal. And there are 4 steps that came out of this feedback. One was declaring a change vision that was meaningful, not just for our customers, but for our employees as well. And then the next 2 bullets go hand in hand, and that is connecting the people and the change agents who are instrumental in making it happen. And sometimes those individuals are deep down in our organizations where leaders cannot necessarily see where the issues are occurring. And these individuals are sometimes self-organized teams. They're not necessarily in leadership positions, and they can identify issues that are critical to addressing the change, and they can resolve the issues before they become problematic. And then lastly, adapting agile change practices to address issues before they surface. One example, an organization who started bringing people back to work in 2021. Now, as you know, during 2021, COVID started to ease and then resurface. So some may have started to return to work and then had to back off of that. One organization did not bring everyone back all at once. They brought people back in phases because they anticipated it would be difficult. knowing that what they didn't get right in phase 1, they could address in phase 2 and phase 3. As a result of that, when COVID seemed to resurface and the pandemic picked back up in pace, they were able to scale back. And then when they started phasing back in again, they could apply what they learned. That's an example of an agile practice. Debbie?
Thanks, Elizabeth. So I want to expand a little bit upon something that Elizabeth mentioned, the shift in change management to change agility. Traditional change management was built around the idea that we need to manage change. However, today, change is very unpredictable and it's continuous. So the world of change management demands that we change. Organizations must be always ready to change. And this really sets the stage for change agility. And change agility at a fundamental level is about the change in skill set and mindset that's needed to anticipate and respond to change. It means being change ready, and the faster we respond, the more we're able to thrive. Now, change agility does require approaching and implementing change very differently from traditional change management. It demands new behaviors, as you can see in this model. It's a shifting paradigm. Change agility is not about just training and communication. It centers around human-centered leadership and building a strong sense of people, a strong culture, taking care of your people, and then creating a discipline of micro nudges that creates stories and helps people move toward a new way of thinking. So rather than just managing change projects, we need to consider our role in facilitating and transforming as organizations need to change and adapt. So it's about supporting our people and taking them into the future of change. And this is done by honing our HR capabilities, understanding what leadership behaviors need to change, and then instilling a sense of employee ownership throughout the process. The most important shift is that change in mindset, where every interaction is a change interaction. So we need to ensure that we're crafting those small moments more carefully than perhaps some of the big moments, because this is what will make us ready for change and forms our culture. So there are 10 lessons that do hold true, not just for massive changes that the pandemic has brought us, but for any large change. So lesson number 1, every interaction is a change interaction. Now, traditional change management does assume discrete change activities, and change management tended to come last after the solution was already designed and built. However, change is not clear-cut and isolated. Things don't stop because we're implementing a change. So we need to consider looking at change as not only an activity, but a set of interrelated activities. And the pandemic showed us that we can change and adapt in many areas at the same time. So what this means for us as leaders, that change interventions are no longer just deployment activities that occur at the end of the process. Instead, we should intentionally view change opportunities in every interaction. Every meeting, communication, team collaboration, all present an opportunity for us to flex our change adaptation. And employees should be a part of that from the beginning, not just at the end. An example of this is Rabobank, a very large Dutch banking company, really utilized this way of thinking. And when they were considering their hybrid work environment, they created a cross-functional team. And that team really got in front of things, designing surveys, conducting focus groups, talking with senior leaders and employees, and getting input on what will work for everyone and what can make the organization successful. And as a result of their efforts, they can now boast a very successful hybrid work model that seems to be working for all participants within the company. Now, lesson number 2, effective change starts with listening to our employees. So really listening and digesting the insight and taking action is going to be critical as we continue to adapt to changes. It is shown that companies who use these people analytics well are more likely to effectively manage change and to innovate well. So really, how does listening to our employees help with change agility? Well, listening really helps us identify barriers and enablers to change. Once we identify these things, we're able to target our interventions where they're needed and prioritize our resources and activities. So lesson number 3, start a mission first movement, not a marketing campaign. Now, traditional change management approach often started with what's in it for me, and trying to convince our people what they should care about and then selling them that concept. Now, the pandemic showed us that where we have rapid change and changes occurring every day, this model is no longer feasible. What people really need is a sense of purpose and mission to align to. And companies that do align their mission and purpose as a part of everything they do are likely to be more profitable and have a higher level of customer satisfaction. So research has shown it really does pay off to connect people to mission, because people are more likely to be a part of something that's very meaningful to them. Lesson number 4, foster human-centered leadership to inspire change and transformation. Now, we no longer want to see our leaders as just vehicles for change communication. Leaders at all levels need to play a much larger role. Transparency and empathy can help people focus, and a focus on people is the key to a profitable organization and leverages our leaders for change. So when leaders are more when leaders do help translate this mission and purpose into the individual work, they are more likely to be change adaptable. Human-centered leaders don't just say the right thing. They really do believe in people as a source of a competitive advantage. And they want to act in a way that is best suited for the company and enables their people to be their best. An example of this is given with Dow Chemical. They adopted a model they coined Design Your Day. They were looking for solutions for that hybrid environment, and they asked their people to define how they should best craft their own work. Where do they want to work? What work location is best for them? What do their activities look like? How does that schedule look? What support systems do they need? So they were really striving to find that work-life balance that would work best for their people. And they have found as a result of this that they have developed an environment that continues to be collaborative, innovative, and engaging for its people. Lesson number 5, transparent fit-for-purpose communication does set the tone. So when we communicate with our employees to educate them about change, we feel confident that they can adapt more easily. Companies that do this well are more likely to retain and engage their workforce. It's not just about what it said, it's about how it's said. So personalizing communication to the recipient where possible will help get the message not only heard, but also understood. Lesson number 6, design thinking builds change adoption into the solution. Now, we've often thought of our employees as change targets. However, they need to be brought on board at the stage where we're designing the solution. Rather than recipients of change, they should help design the solution itself. That way we don't need to sell them on a solution, because it will be built into the design. This not only helps find the right solution, but it has change adaptability built right into the process. Lesson number 7, micro changes result in macro transformations. So when you think of big changes, it can often feel overwhelming, and it might even stall the work altogether. So what we fail to consider in that model is perhaps the nature of people. We can't change everything all at once. It's just not natural for us. But we can change many little things at the same time and end up with a larger change. Similarly, trying to get everyone to change at the same time is not often successful. Rather than jumping into the solution full force, we should consider easing people in and taking small subsets to increase the acceptance as functions change, and then we expand that change across the organization. Lesson 8, nudge technology puts behavior change in the workflow. So we all know that it is very tough to change behaviors, and it requires constant nudges and reinforcements. And technology can have a big impact with this. As we know, technology can digest vast amounts of information, and then it can take that information and predict various behaviors. Technologies like Cultivate, Microsoft Viva, and Workday Everywhere, they do focus on nudging people within the workflow to change their behavior, and then in turn create a large impact. Lesson number 9, reward and recognize new changed behaviors. As we know, rewards and recognition are a key to sustaining behavior change in action. And we need to ensure that as we're creating these recognition systems, that they are fair and equitable. And in the context of change management, we want them to be transparent, and we want them to be aligned with those behaviors that a company wants to foster. So this type of reinforcement will mean doing the right thing also is the thing that people want to do. And if we want to do it, then we're more likely to continue doing it in the future. And it is shown that companies who take this mindset are more likely to adapt to change well and innovate well. Lesson number 10, HR capabilities to foster change agility are critical. So as we are moving through these large changes, HR teams around the world are being asked to be catalysts for this change. And a global HR capability assessment was conducted where it asked 8,000 HR professionals about change management and change agility. And this group believed that change transformation was the #1 priority for professionals around the world. However, at the same time, 40% of those professionals expressed that they don't have the skill set needed for this type of change. So if HR is at the center of these changes and transformation, are we prepared to do that? So we ask ourselves, if we're not, what can we do? Well, research has suggested that there are a couple of solutions we should consider. One is accessing capability gaps within our HR department. Once we recognize where those gaps are, then we can focus on continuous learning, analyzing, and interpreting data. A second area is a focus on values and coaching, ensuring that as our HR teams, we are not only focused on improving our own skill set in coaching, but we're also tailoring programs for the organization that focus on short-term capabilities as well as longer career growth opportunities. So as we consider these concepts, I would like now to turn it over to Elizabeth, and she's going to discuss some return to work strategies with you. Elizabeth, you're on mute.
Yes, I fixed that. Thank you. Yes, so we're going to round out the last part of the discussion, talking about the workplace model, because what has happened in the last couple of years is probably the biggest workplace transformation that we'll see in our lifetimes. And research suggests that the work from home model is here to stay. And recent headlines have indicated that there's been some struggle with employees returning to work. More and more organizations are wanting their employees to come back full-time, and employees are resisting having experienced the benefits of working from home. And the reason is that hybrid work or remote work offers a trifecta of reduced real estate expenses, increased productivity, and also enhanced employee satisfaction. And combined, that led to a paradigm shift in the workplace, suggesting that organizational success can be linked to taking care of people and also building a strong culture. Now, there's no one size fits all approach for workplace transformation. For some, remote 100% works, for some hybrid works, and some organizations feel that their employees have to be in the office all the time. But there is a process for figuring out what recipe works for your organization. And it's a 4-step process. And the 4 steps are first, the discovery stage, which is interviewing your employees, determining what your resources are, and more importantly, determining what your work needs and your projects are. Because once you know that, you can look at your physical space requirements and determine what work can be done remotely and what work requires individuals to be in the office, just by functional area. And knowing that, you can build your policies and your processes around where those individuals need to be based on their work requirements, and the job descriptions follow along. And that's where your HR support comes in, and that's where we help our leaders help employees understand what the guidelines are, and then we help the employees and the leaders manage to those guidelines. Now, earlier, Debbie discussed Robobank and Dow, and both took a human-centered approach to adapting the hybrid model and more remote work models, asking employees what works best for them. And that is another key takeaway, because making plans based on employee feedback, really at the end of the day, it is also a critical consideration. And what they found when they included this element was that employees were more productive, more engaged, and satisfied when they had a role in choosing where they were able to work and how they were able to work. So it is possible to include your employees in tailoring the outcome of how your organization meets the needs on how the work gets done. So if we'll move to the next slide, there is a way to use workplace transformation agility as a competitive advantage. And understanding that, as I mentioned, some organizations are struggling to get workers back to the office, but as of September, 52% of workers were not fully in office. So some of the things that you can do are making return to work fun. For example, you can start each workday with an appealing event, a 45-minute learning session, or an end of day event, like it could be a sporting event like a kickball game or a cocktail hour, anything that you think your employees would enjoy, a paid lunch, or a lunch truck. Be creative, something related to your organization, something to get everybody in and excited, because what you're trying to do is maintain your culture, and that is very difficult to do remotely. One organization that I'm familiar with required remote a couple of days a week, but one of those days, well, there was some flexibility on the days, one of those days per week was required for everyone. So there was at least one day a week where everyone was present to maintain that culture and do something that included everyone at least one day a week, and continue the messaging that was important to that organization. Offering interaction with leadership is also an opportunity to bring people into the organization, or a group of leaders like a panel. Very few employees will turn down an opportunity to spend time with leaders and, groom their opportunities for advancement. And lastly, if the organization pays some of the costs that make working from home attractive, that also helps with prospect of coming back to the office. And there are, ideas like, train tickets, bus fare, parking, or you can look at your benefits offerings like dependent care reimbursement, which really is not a cost to an employer. It's just another addition to your benefit offering with your flexible spending. Or you can offer elder care insurance, which is another benefit offering. It's an ancillary service. But child care and elder care are the kinds of things that make working from home just much easier with people with those kinds of demands on their lives. So creating incentives by paying for costs helps with that transition, even if it's just trying to get people to come in a couple of days a week. And in a market where the talent is tight, where we are right now, you almost have to grasp at anything to keep your strongest players employed. So moving to the next slide, wanting to share some organizations with you who are doing both models, the remote and the hybrid, and to share an example with you of how they're doing it. Now, Automatic is a company who is working remote 100% of the time, and they say that they included the remote concept from the foundation of their company. And their belief was that when hiring, it was one of the best ways for them to attract talent. Now, they are a technology company, and my experience as well in terms of retaining technological talent is that to hire them and retain them, we had to do the same. We had to offer remote as well. But they liked the flexible work environment, including the office hours, so that they were not really as focused on when the work got done, just as long as the work got done. But here, there were some other examples of fully remote companies as well. Also, some organizations who offer hybrid work environments. And I just wanted to mention what Dropbox shared, which is that they were clear about what they wanted to achieve in their company mission. And they felt that the hybrid environment met their goals of learning, health, and flexibility. But that they needed both in-office and remote to fully meet their business needs. Now, moving on to the last slide, today we've talked about the concept of change agility, as well as new change strategies to deploy in our post-pandemic work environments. Like some companies are leveraging third parties like universities or other organizations to remain competitive in a market that has been accelerating rapidly and digitally. Leadership is becoming more impactful than management, and remote and hybrid approaches to work are really our new normal. Organizations need to be able to pivot quickly to adapt processes to meet the immediate needs of their customers and their employees. Debbie has shared the differences between change and agility and change management, which seem more and more prevalent, and the very interesting 10 lessons of change agility, which seems to be a more and more common vernacular in the workplace. So at this time, we're hoping that you will share some transition strategies that are working for your company. Anyone want to enter in the chat box what you're seeing?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, let's give everybody a few minutes here and put in your notes and comments on what you're seeing working for you. And I think I already see one response here. One response from the attendees, it says, We found it beneficial to clearly communicate the business reasons for requiring employees to return to office and connected those reasons to the company values, which definitely agree with. Any comments from Debbie and Elizabeth on that?
No, I would just say that is a really prevalent strategy. As we move more and more into trying to engage our workforce, especially in a hybrid or remote environment, making sure that people understand, why we're asking them to come back to work and how that impacts them as well as the company and how that aligns with the values really goes back to what Elizabeth said about sharing the vision. And all of those pieces fit together. So that's a great example. Thank you.
Yeah, we have one more share from the attendees. The use of surveys. They said they sent surveys out to employees to create a return from work strategy by listening to what their employees are saying, which is obviously a great way to start, by listening to what people want and addressing that.
I'll take that, Debbie. I think that goes back to Debbie's comment from the two organizations, Rabobank and Dow, who had a human-centered approach and asked their employees for feedback before they decided on their return to work strategy. Knowing what your employees want and including them in the decision always makes the transition more smooth. And to be able to say that our return to work strategy included you in the solution, it is a win-win for the organization and for the staff.
Yeah. We'll take one more before we end the session and make sure we give everybody time back. There is one more that we can pick here. Is we created policies that were flexible enough to meet individual needs. For example, we set core business hours when people were expected to be available, then allowed individuals to adjust their day and schedule to suit their situations. Any comments, Debbie?
Yeah, I think that's a great concept. I think it sets an expectation that, people need to be available to take care of business and continue being productive. While at the same time, it allows that flexibility. So if you do have childcare or elder care, or just want to walk your dog in the middle of the day, then I think that a core business hour strategy is kind of a neat idea.
Yeah, I believe in that. And I see a lot of that actually being implemented in a lot of companies. I mean, you don't have to work a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. Sometimes you might want to work to 6, but have that hour where you can, either watch, a young child or take care of your pet. So I do see a lot of flexibility that helps with that. And definitely agree with that concept. So good share. Thank you very much. All right. Wanted to just move on to the last slide and just say thank you, everybody, for taking time today and learning more about change agility. Thank you, Debbie and Elizabeth, for joining us today and sharing with us. We will be sending this recording out to all the people that have registered for the webinar. Plus, we would also be adding it to our website. So feel free to check there for the recording. And see you again next time for our next roundtable. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.